Greetings, everybody. I am Pastor Jeremy, and it is Mental Health Awareness Month. And in acknowledgement of this month, I'm here with a very special St. Luca, who is a part of our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, but also is a professional mental health counselor. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Rafa Gonzalez, and I'm a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida.
Yes, sir. And so Rafa and I often have conversations about art and literature, but also mental health. And I thought it would be great to chop it up with my brother here about specifically why mental health awareness should mean so much to people of faith. And so we just wanted to kind of volley back and forth, and I kind of just wanted to interview him to see what he had to say about some of these things. So I think that the first question we'll try and answer, or the first question I'll ask you, Rafa, is just that. Why should mental health awareness be important specifically to people of faith?
Yeah. To answer that, I'm going to scratch out the word should, but I would just say, why is mental health mental health awareness important to people of faith? And I think about when I work with people of faith, I always, the theme that keeps coming up is how we are body, mind, and spirit. That kind of theme comes across multiple denominations that I work with. And people of faith always find that connecting that aspect of spirituality in mental health is like super important. And if you think about it, if we are body, mind, and soul, and it's all connected, every time one of those three is affected, then it affects the other two. So if you're having a physical illness, your mental health is affected, and you may even feel like your spiritual life is affected. If you're having a dry season in your spiritual life, that may even affect your mental health and the way that the colors that you use to see the world, and even your physical health. So all those are so connected that, you know, you cannot just work with one without acknowledging the other two. So as a person of faith, that would be like one of the most important things that you're going to bring to therapy if you come to a therapist that allows that. And by the way, if you go to a therapist that is not a person of faith or does not have the same faith as you, it is totally okay for you to bring faith as part of your healing process in therapy, because it is part of your assets that allows you to move forward and heal. So just because you're a person of faith and I may not have a therapist that is a person of faith, doesn't make it, doesn't exclude their ability to incorporate that in the healing journey. And if that answers the question.
No, for sure. But in listening to you speak, you talk about how if we're the tripod person, if we're spirit, mind, and body, right? Any kind of damage to one of those can affect the others. And I think about a good friend of mine who a lot of her identity was wrapped up in being able to be there for other people. Right. It was about the kindness she would be able to show to other people, about running to help them get projects done or helping them pay their bills when they couldn't. And when she suffered an injury to her leg, she wasn't able to move around. She wasn't able to move around the way that she used to. And this started to she began to kind of question her identity and to feel like she wasn't worthy of love because she wasn't able to be there physically with people the way she had been. And so that's just an example of what you were talking about when you talk about how all three of those things kind of affect each other. So you want to, it's just as important as keeping your body healthy, just as important as keeping your spirit healthy, right? By being in community and studying connection with God and all of that, making sure that your mental health is in order is important as well. I'm curious, in your experience and from your perspective, what are some of the reasons that some folks who could benefit from meeting with a counselor or seeing a therapist often neglect to do so? What are some of the barriers? What are some of the reasons that people, what are some of the barriers people can't control, and what are some of the barriers that people can control?
And this is why Mental Health Awareness Month is so important, because there are a lot of different barriers, as many as personalities are there. So there is, of course, I don't know where to find it. I don't know where to go. And I think we can talk about that later.
Right.
But just feeling like this is new to me. I don't know where to go to get help. I don't know who to ask. That could be a barrier. Shame about what I'm feeling. Okay, I don't want to be the only one who is experiencing this. There's a lot of stigma about mental health. Yeah. And people may feel ashamed that they are feeling down or depressed or hopeless, and not want to bring that. Among people of faith, especially, there is this fear of bringing up to others in the same faith community about mental health issues or lack of hope or sadness or depression, because a lot of time we Christians have not done really good at meeting people where they are, and then try to push it away by saying you just need to pray harder, or you just need to have more faith, which one does not exclude the other. And there is this stigma that if I'm struggling with some type of mental health issue, that bringing it up to my community may be met by or with comments that negate my experience, and it, at times even makes it more exacerbated. And then that shame that I don't want to look like I'm the only one who is struggling, which I think St. Luke's does a really good job at normalizing things. But a lot of times there's our own fear of being seen different than or other than, and we don't want to bring that up. There is this idea, like, for example, if you're, I don't know, if you're walking in your backyard and you step on a nail, or you have diabetes, you have this notion that, okay, this is something that I'm gonna go to the doctor and I'm going to get treated, and there is no shame on that. You know, you get it, you go to the doctor, you go to people who have training, who God has put there to have specific training and knowledge about the body and how the body works. So if we do that with our body, why is it that we don't do it with our mind? I think there is there's that stigma that, well, if it is mental, then it should just go on its own, or I should be able to do something about it. But yeah, when someone has diabetes, you don't tell the person, just pray about it and that's it. You know, of course you can pray about it, and of course you're gonna have to change your diet and change your lifestyle and see a doctor.
And that's that's a kind of a faith without works thing, isn't it? And so, what I hear you saying is the same thing with your mental health. And it's like when you find out that when you receive an unfavorable diagnosis, and your doctor says, "All right, well, you need to make these health changes," right? You don't expect to just pray and have the thing go away, right? And so, what I hear you saying is that it's the same with our minds. Like, just because it's mental, just because it's not something that you can touch, right? You can't just pray it away. It involves life changes. What? Could you, for a second, Rafa, pretend that I am a person that has come to you and said, you know, I'm having a lot of anxiety and depression, and maybe I don't even use that terminology because sometimes we don't know it, we don't know what to call it those things, right? But I'm experiencing a lot of depression and anxiety, but I don't want to go to a therapist because I'm kind of ashamed that I'm even feeling these things. What would you say to a person that came to you as a professional mental health counselor if they said that to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Before I go there, I just want to clarify that this is a role play, and
for sure.
This is not therapy. This is
no. I'm just wondering how.
Yeah, absolutely.
Respond to something.
Yeah.
Like that.
So the first thing I would do is we try to normalize that. Like, you know, this is, I mean, the symptoms that you're having are normal, makes sense based on the circumstances that you're having, kind of
Right.
normalize the experience.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
if we'll start working, I think you were going to ask a question about what kind of life changes we can make. That would be, the way I would work, especially with someone says that they are a person of faith, I would try to incorporate, body, mind, and soul.
Mm-hmm.
Are there areas in your physical life that may need to change? Because there are a lot of benefits to exercise, for example, or walking 30 minutes a day. So something like that. Those changes do produce chemical changes in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So that there's also mental health exercises that you may have to incorporate in your daily life, like mindfulness or deep breathing, or even just becoming aware of the thought processes in your mind and being able to reframe them.
Yeah.
And if it's spirituality, then also what is going on in your spiritual life.
Mm-hmm.
I always think of this example, working with someone who believes in the power of confession, for example.
Mm-hmm.
That spiritual aspect of their faith has a lot of mental health benefits. So just because that's part of your, if that's part of your journey and your spirituality, that will immediately transform the way that you perceive what's happening in your life. So without going too much into like doing a treatment plan or something for someone, it would be definitely important to normalize. You expect the therapist to normalize this experience for you. And now there are different ways of doing therapy. There are as many as there are personalities, but you are going to expect to have some type of guidance and direction. And that is something that might be beneficial.
So to that idea, was you saying that there's tons of different methods of therapy? There are tons of different therapists with different specialties and with different personalities, truly. So I'm curious, for those people who really don't know where to start, if someone is wanting to start a counseling relationship with a therapist, what should be their first steps, or what are some first steps that they can take?
Yeah. So I would say, first of all, if you have insurance, you will check in with your insurance and to send you a list of therapists, or you can even go to psychologytoday.com and look for therapies, and you can narrow it down by insurance, by issues, by gender, by approach to therapy. You can read bios, things like that. If you don't have insurance, then there are options in the community that can provide sliding scale. So those are a little bit more difficult to find, but finding places where they can accommodate to your income and whatnot. And if that's something that is not an issue for you, you say, I can afford this. This is like important to me. And then definitely going to Psychology Today will be a good step to find that. There's another page that has a lot of insurance therapists. It's called Headway. And that, I don't know if we can probably put those links somewhere, but
probably.
But those,
I can't see why not.
Yeah, so you can go there. But when you're looking for a therapist, it's important to know, like, hey, there is, as we talked about, there's a lot of different ways of approaches to therapy. You want to make sure that your therapist at least specializes in the area that you're looking for. Now, if you don't know what you're looking for, then that's okay. It's okay to meet with a therapist and say, yeah, I just want to have a therapy session or a session to see if we're a good fit. Just like we would do if we go to a doctor and they say, we're going to have to do surgery. I'm like, I need a second opinion. That's okay. We do that with doctors. We can do that with therapists.
That's been a big part of my journey, my personal journey with therapy, is meeting with a therapist for 2 or 3 weeks and then saying, I appreciate I appreciate your style of therapy. It isn't what I'm looking for right now. I'm going to look elsewhere for care. And I think that some folks that I've talked to have kind of met with a therapist and it wasn't exactly what they were looking for. They became discouraged and they kind of gave up on it altogether. So I appreciate you saying that and letting people know that it's okay. And it's actually probably a necessary part of the journey to maybe meet with a few different people to see who exactly speaks to what you're needing. Yeah.
There is a big component that has to do with the healing process and is having that trust and that relationship bond with your therapist. It's therapy is a little different than going to the doctor. You know, I'm not gonna care much about what my doctor thinks when I'm gonna have surgery. But when we're talking about therapy, that trust, that therapeutic alliance, therapeutic relationship is super important. And it you know, the more you can feel that you can trust your therapist, the more you're gonna engage in some of the changes that may be suggested to you, or homeworks or whatever, if you like homework.
Sure.
But there are different approaches, and without making this into a counseling 101 and theories, I like to see this as we all speak kind of different languages, and we may be saying the same thing, but we may be using a different language that kind of doesn't connect with you.
Sure.
And if that's the case, then another therapist may have a language that resonates better with you. And we may be targeting the same area, but using different tools that it's like a different language.
Right.
But at the end of the day, one of the biggest indicators of success in therapy has to do with that therapeutic alliance. Now, if you're feeling a little apprehensive about meeting with a therapist for the first time, that's okay. That's normal. You know, I remember when I went to my first therapy session with my therapist, I was so nervous. I was like, I didn't know what it was going to be like. And I was like rambling most of the session. But then I got used to it. I got comfortable, and then made me feel more willing to open up. I don't know if I said this, if this goes with a previous question, but one of the ways in which we have learned that therapy works is by being able to retell a story in a safe environment. There are some changes in the brain that are happening. So sometimes it just needs to be a safe environment. If you don't feel safe, then that's okay. We need to find a different therapist where you feel safe. Now, this can also happen in a church group, in a community, where you feel safe and you're able to retell that. But you may need someone who has a little more knowledge about how the brain works and how human behavior works, that might be able to give you a little more feedback and tools to continue working in that area.
So, Rafa, I really appreciate you, man. I think that you are an extremely loving and caring and valuable member of our community, and I'm glad to be able to call you family. Before we end our interview, I want to ask you, is there anything else, just in your in your big therapist brain, is there anything else that you want to communicate to us about the importance of mental health awareness?
Yeah, I think when we're talking about people of faith, I think the most important thing is to know that just because you're having a therapist, you're going to therapy, does not mean that you're broken. Does not mean that you have less faith than others. Does not mean that you have to keep that part of you secret, or you're less than. Sometimes, and this is, we didn't talk about it, but I want to add this. Sometimes we experience circumstances in our life mean, the pandemic was a huge one,
Mhm.
that do change, like our ability to cope, our
Yeah.
ability to deal with whatever is arising
Right.
is not enough.
Right.
And sometimes it even our chemicals in the brain start changing.
Mm. Mhm.
And sometimes you may need to see a psychiatrist as well,
Mm.
that may be able to prescribe medication that can help restore some of the balances in the chemicals in your brain, so that you're able to even engage in therapy. That's
Mm.
important, because sometimes people try therapy and it's not working,
Mhm.
but sometimes they may need a little extra,
Mm.
and that may be medication. Just like you would take medication for diabetes or something
Right.
like that,
Right.
you may need a little extra push, and
Right.
that's okay. There's no shame on that.
Right.
And I think society is doing a really good at normalizing that as a whole. Um, Now, I know there's even more stigma when it comes to taking medication.
Sure.
Just know that this is not something that, you have to have a conversation with a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychiatrist, but most of the research is showing that the best results sometimes come with combination of medication, psychotropics,
Yeah.
and mental health services.
Yeah.
And sometimes your mental health counseling may start giving you enough of a boost that you can stop the medication with the guidance of your doctor.
Right.
But that is something that not all the time that you go get an evaluation for medication means that you're going to be taking medication for the rest of your life.
Right.
Sometimes it's just, I need this for this period, this season of my life, until I get the necessary skills to be able to cope in a healthy way with
Right.
whatever is arising in my life right now.
Right.
And
Right.
then that's it. This is just a season. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean that you have to be there forever.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
such a good word, Rafa. I do think that is a big stumbling block for a lot of people. And what I hear you saying is it's about using the tools that will help you in the moment. You know what I'm saying? With the coaching of professionals that can really help guide you through those difficult times. Rafa, I truly appreciate you so much, man. Anytime we get to talk, I feel like I learned something, and so I appreciate you. And I appreciate you all listening. I hope that you're well. God bless you.